Okay, slow start, but I think we're good. Let's see if Twitch was having an issue picking up what I was putting down. Boom, boom, boom. All right. Let that stream warm up. So we're on day 2 of the template method. And we had a pretty good run yesterday of just running through, looking at the problem we wanted to solve, which was, instead of our base actor, we had things like this, right? Where we were painfully and manually going through every time and doing the same thing. We were finding the message we wanted, we were formatting the message we wanted, and it's a very brittle approach because anywhere in the code that we want to populate a message, we're going to have the same kind of clinky implementation. So the intent of the template method is to define the skeleton of an algorithm in an operation. Deferring, that was our big kind of aha moment yesterday, was to defer some steps to client subclasses. So we took this whole approach and we encapsulate it inside of our game message abstraction. So this is where we created the algorithm that was hopefully going to take care of all of the nuances with game messages. And we're free to make more abstractions, right? So we could create an interface here that allows us not just to have game messages, but also have global messages or login messages or anything we want. And so this complexity can grow. I see Smudge, Danji, and Rob in chat. Hello all. Just going to return a high five, which I believe to be the highest of fives. So, we got this algorithm. And it's pretty simple. And the parse resource key is that deferred step. So then we have our implementation in player message, target message, room message. So even though we've only deferred one step, we see the value. This one step being deferred allows us to generalize the formatting of all game messages, specifically, to this one algorithm. And if we ever needed to expand that to, again, say global messages, we could create a new abstraction with a new algorithm that allowed for the templating of that new message type. So nothing too crazy. And algorithms, no matter how simple, can always be optimized. So we aren't quite concerned with the how right now. We're concerned really with the why and the what. So we tried out the game yesterday just to see if those messages were coming back to us, and they worked. So I was able to, again, log in as Gary and do a fight Carl. And so that's all going through my pipeline. There's a few bugs. I'm not getting the good blue color when I heal Carl, but I'm about to show my dirty laundry as well. So let's go ahead and open up this guy. Alright. So I come here and I type in Beth. Welcome back, Beth. Come back over here and it says Beth enters the game. So those things are outside of the game message pipeline, right? So I'm not actually going to the base actor to retrieve those messages, but I will be rooting out anywhere those messages occur and hopefully working them into the template pattern. But if I do fight Carl from here, so things are working. This is going through the pipeline that we created, the template engine, and so I'm seeing the appropriate messages here. I'll showcase so Carl now has 76. There's a few bugs here and there, little things that are actually going to be really fun to go through and find, because it's going to allow us to tighten up all the mechanics of the game, and it should be really rewarding when we get to them, because we can re-observe all the patterns we've done and take a little bit of pride in how clean the code can be. So fight Carl. Beth has Carl for 20 damage. Inspect Carl. 56. Fight Carl. Fight Carl. And so I'm missing the death message here, but I am getting it over here. So the plumbing's in place, right? These are fun problems to have, because every time we fix one or enhance one against the framework that we've created, it makes the game a little more fun to play, a little more feature rich. So day 2 is going to be coming in here, looking at the pattern and seeing how implementing this pattern affects the rest of our game and the way that we've gone about making these calls, or where we call them. Have we granted ourselves the ability to make a larger refactor, right? Because this is a code smell. This is a red flag. Having to create this here. This is a dependency, and we are creating it in line. That actually hurts. So the question becomes: can we inject this in? Can we put it someplace more universal, to where everything can share in these 3 template engines? Let's go back over to the hive mind real fast. Let's just back up. Let's keep our eye on our overarching intention. And our overarching intention was that the hive mind would be this place where we would house all of the dependencies. I see chat floating in my peripheries. I'm gonna give it 2 more minutes, then I'm gonna check chat. So I do love it. I do love chat. So we've got our hive mind that's pretty clean, right? We've got this seed world, which I think we can go ahead and get rid of this now that we've introduced this idea of a repository. Let's go and stop this. Come back over here to solution. Let's add a new folder. We'll say it's the game engine. Again, we're trying to be consistent between our projects because there are tiers, and we're doing this very light implementation of the domain-driven design. That's kind of our backbone, right? To keep things orderly in our mental map. So if I see game engine, I want to ensure I'm seeing game engine things. So I got a text resource repository. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna make this one environment, because that's actually where it should go. I think we can just call it environment repository. We just want to get that seed world thing out of there. I'm just going to call it environment repository. Not really sure what it's going to do. Make it static. Get rid of this. curve to hive mind. It's just this guy. This is a relic from, I think, like our 4th week or something. It's super old. Super old. And we want it someplace else. So what do we actually need to return here? Oops. So we want to turn a grid. Cool. That's what our world is. Our world is a grid. So, public static grid. Ooh, small refactor. We've gone off script a little bit because we want to really deep dive and make things cleaner. So I got to bring the model of the grid up into my data tier. Right, and so this should all look exactly as we see it down here, more or less. I say just more or less. There's going to be some variance because part of the wonder of refactoring is deciding what's actually changed, not suffering from sunk cost theory, right? So sunk cost theory is this idea that once you put a level of effort into something, it creates a resistance to change and an inability to see the folly in continuing forward with that investment. Okay, let's look down here to grid. Pretty simple. Pretty simple. Let's bring that up here. And we see we also need to bring in room collection. This is good because we want our models. Let's just bring this guy up to model. Oops. Delete that out. Quick. Move that into our data domain environment and model. Moving all the things. Content and room key. We might run into a little bit of an issue because we've got iGameObject here. And this guy is in common. But we didn't want to create a circular dependency. Alright, so we might back off a bit. You know what? We're going for it. We are going for it. Means we've got to bring up iGameObject, and that might be something that pains us in the future. But in the meantime, let's see how this goes, because we all love adventure. So I'm going to delete these guys out. Quick refactor. And I need this guy. I need the iGameObject. I feel like this is going to be one of those things where you start and it seems so innocuous, but at the end of the day, I'm like, I'm cursing myself. Alright, let me read chat real fast because it's going to take me a while if I don't. Ooh, I'm gonna bail. I'm gonna bail on catching up with chat because that's a lot. I promise. From this point forward, I will do a better job of kind of looking over there. But I'm gonna heads down for about 5 minutes and talk about refactoring this guy because I think it's gonna go in a good direction, but it's gonna take a second to kind of untangle. The things I need. And so if you're following along, I'm not explaining much because all I'm really doing is taking anything that should be a probable model for a data object, and I'm moving it up into the data project. And because it's something like threading needles, all I'm really doing is moving the classes and then changing the namespace. So nothing too crazy, but we will see that's going to have something of an impact on pretty much everywhere that we call these things. But it ends up making sense, right? Because we just didn't have the data tier as an option before. Okay, it's looking better already. I'm trying to get the feeling though. Would have been a lot. Okay, so this and this go away. Action comes up. Let's just do everything. So I feel like everything should come up. Game actions is in there, game event, request and response. Okay. And hopefully when I come up for air here in a few seconds, we can talk about why these things are probably better off in data. And it's a small semantic kind of thing. Right? It's not, you could have kept them in common. But common should really be a very, very light place. Let's go back through. Oh, iPlayer. Okay. And iInventory. I believe believe we got inventory as domain. We do. And we've got player as a domain. There's our iPlayer. Let's delete that. And then our inventory, iInventory. And delete that. Inventory types. So moving these things along. That goes away. Alright, so things are starting to line themselves up as we'd like them to be. Alright, looks like we're still missing a few other things. We'll get those. Let's go ahead and build this and see exactly how many problems we've introduced. 131. Well, that's not necessarily true. All this just to make this guy get seed grid. Incredible. We're putting on our big boy pants. And boom. Oh. Okay. A few things are still kind of wonky. Let's take all of this and put it in our environment repository. Oops. Var grid equals new grid. Grid.rooms. Grid.rooms. Cool. So this is going to be a bit of a nasty thing here that we're going to have to work our way around. But this is really an artifact of things we don't have in place, because all these things should invariably come from our data tier, whether it's from a database or anywhere else. So we'll fix that in a second, but it is a bit hacky. That's looking better. I'll look at chat in just 3 more minutes. I think we're getting where we need to be. Trying to be not so hacky when possible. Look at that. Move this guy away. Boom, boom, boom. So inside a common. much refactoring. I was thinking, this is an example from, I think, our bridge pattern, where we just wanted to kind of show what this could be. We did a player anatomy. Under player anatomy. So where possible, I want to keep my interfaces in the root of my domain, and I want to put my actual models into a model folder. Oh, weird. It's actually an enum. That's not. How do you pluralize an enum, like player anatomy? Anatomies? We'll leave that for now. So that's actually not a model. So let's not go against what we just said. It's an enum. And we can debate whether or not, depending if you're storing enums in your database, whether or not it becomes a model. Probably. But we say that because when we do any kind of code first stuff, EF for the database doesn't care what iPlayer is. It's just going to take your model, and that's what you persist in your schema. Make sense? So much of this. It's going to be worth it. But great example here, right? Like this stuff. This isn't common. This is data. Let's go ahead and be bold and close everything. Smudge says, don't pluralize enums. Smudge says it. I've come to not doubt Smudge. I should, though. I should doubt you. You deserve some skepticism. Alright, so I'm going to close all documents. I'm going to save all this. Did not mean to turn this into a refactoring day, but the code wants what the code wants, y'all. So part of the problem is that we have this pluralized enum pattern, but we've mixed modes here. We've got this enum approach where we can strongly type these things, but we also have actual enums, and there's no reason to have both of them. So that's going to be a real good cleanup and refactor day. So don't be scared of refactoring. Everyone has to do it. And if you're the low person on the totem pole wherever you are, I guarantee you'll be doing it more than anybody else. Ba-da-ba. Oh, I think I already moved player anatomy. Yep. Delete you. Shouldn't have any of the action strategy stuff in there, I don't think. So actor states, I actor, and singleton all go away. I can't see the future on this. It'd be weird if it all just the comments got burned away completely. It would not surprise me. Oh, goodness. I don't want you there. I want you there. Save everything, close everything. Move, move, move. Alright, so, as usual, we're getting all these errors, and most of them are not real. Alright, so we have this interpreter that we put inside of easy TCP. This is the model for the active expression. This is going to be an outlier because I don't necessarily know that we need to have anything that's called easy TCP inside of our data tier. I'm going to put it here just to complete the example, but this is going to, in a good way, force us to really analyze why things are where. In a good way, hopefully. In a good way. So, I will talk about one of the more advanced patterns that we wanted to see, and that was anything involving an audit trail. So if we want to persist things in an audit trail, then they should be modeled inside of our data tier. So that ends up being quite a bit. So your data tier actually is in charge of modeling a lot of things. And a lot of the work that I do, it's a reason why modeling the schema first becomes such a preferred approach, because the schema is going to be what really fuels everything else. Everything else is derived from your data tier. Okay, let's see where we're at. Oops. Looking better. See, a lot of this stuff is going up here. Yeah. I'm sorry, what? This thing's telling me that something already exists, but I'm pretty sure it doesn't. Look at that. Where did that guy come from? It's the same thing. Burn, burn, burn. Smudge says, yeah, we need to chat about component cohesion. We do, man. Yeah, so much good stuff as far as clean, 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 clean. I saw in a chat as well between Smudge and Rob. Thought it was a great point about continually learning. And I know, hopefully, it ignores the quick copies and paste. I promise you it's going to look cleaner here in a bit. So then I just want to do data, and I want to go into the environment repository, get seed. This thing needs a setter. Cool. We'll figure this out in a second. Okay. Looking. Cleaning up some namespaces as we see them. Alright, let's fix this template stuff because it's going to get all wackadoodle. Okay. All right, down from 178 to 78. And we're getting things in our data tier where they're supposed to be and lightening up the responsibility of the common tier, which should be very, very light indeed. Okay, so actually inventory, keepsake, weapon, and wearable. Yep, all that can go away. Boom, boom, pop. Did I move grid? Yeah, I did. Goodbye to you. Alright, so I'm letting a mix of, I think it's mainly resharper here. I'm not saying this is 100% right, but if we ever want to get to a place where we are using databases and all that fun stuff, we want to have a properly fleshed out data tier. And what we don't want, especially this early on, is start to confusing the point of tiers. So if we're using a common tier as a data tier, let's go ahead and smack ourselves on the hand. Take the pain. Wait a minute. Get things where they're supposed to be. Right? So now we're smoking. So all these references just need to be updated now. So once again, when you see 180 error messages, do not panic. There's nothing to be afraid of. Well, there is, sometimes. But don't let that technical debt scare you from doing the right thing. Because if you don't nip it when you see it, it's just going to become more and more technical debt. Alright, so let's come back to that here in a second. Alright, so as before in our CLI we had so I'm going to add a reference to data, and I'm going to tell you right now that sometime in the future data is going to probably become something different than another tier, which might be proxy or something else. Because we want to be able to share those models and things that are in data with lower tiers, but we might not want to share some of the proxy logic, things like database string connections and such like that, because we're already talking over a network to our client and server. So we haven't gotten to that database persistence point yet, and so it's really, there's no real difference there. It's really semantic. But if we introduce a persistence strategy, then we're going to want to break up that data tier to something else. Maybe like a data model tier and a data connection tier. We don't know. Smudge says, if you see 180 messages, pour coffee. If you see 3,000, grab a bottle of vodka while you restart your machine. I'd have to agree with that. Okay. And so again, this is starting to make a little bit of sense here, right? Because our server is definitely where we want to have our data. Boom. So all this, just using common everywhere. I mean, stop and think to yourself for a second, why should common really hold model stuff? It shouldn't. All right, look at that. Built and done. Do I have HiveMind still open? Yeah. So what was this thing crying about? Ah. So I really just wanted the value. So it's a dictionary. Cool. Grun says, can you run code analysis just for the fun of it once you're done fixing all those references? I can. I'll do it at the very end. Maybe. I don't know if it's going to detract, though. You should go with Smudge, because I've got an independent license, and there's definitely some merit. And so definitely get with Smudge, Gruns. As far as like the code analysis part. Because I think there's space for a separate stream where we really deep dive into, or maybe not even me, maybe just you guys really deep dive into that analysis of code. And an independent, they call it an independent. They refer to it as the zone of pain when you've got a particularly bad report card. But okay, refactoring done. It's painful, but you got to do it. It's just a good exercise. Consider all of this to be an exercise. Okay, so instead of my HiveMind, remember that I'm using the chain of responsibility pattern to help clean this up. So I'm going to be deferring all of my relevant steps to one of these handlers. And in this case, I'm only looking at the command handler. Right? Everything else should be fine. We want to keep this as clean as possible. So, if I come over here into my command handler, we did a lot of work to keep this pretty clean. Okay, so now we're still seeing places where our template pattern should be in play. So we're talking about the value of centralizing that templating system and the places where it can grow. It's going to be anywhere we're currently seeing action result and we're handling that construction of the message manually. So I'm just going to flip through this. So this is definitely a candidate. Let's look at some of our other handlers as well. All right, so we're doing the same thing here. So really littered throughout our code, doing things that felt right at the time. We've now got all these places where this one template pattern can come in and streamline implementation. We just have to decide, where do we want And this all, and let me back up real fast, because this all came from looking inside the base actor, coming down here, and we said this feels good, this fill result. But then inside of this, we had these 3 new calls, and we said this is a code smell. This is a red flag. And it really is, because this is great to have here in the action result, but it's only satisfying really one type of message, which is room message and player message. We're going to have to make this a lot more expansive. And when we do that, we're not going to want to have these new calls here. Let's go back over to our hive mind. Because remember, our hive mind is part of the singleton pattern. So we've got our hive mind available everywhere within the core. Presumably this is the only place we'd be calling these methods. So, you can see that we're doing some new stuff here. And we're setting some successors. Tell you what, for right now, just right here, I'm just going to do a public and oops, I've already forgotten the name. Localization player message. Data.domain.localization.player message. And I'm already feeling weird about the name player message. How do I convey like template engine? Something. And here and yesterday Grunes had a point about polymorphism, right? So you can see here that and he asked if we were going to like call these template parsers in a polymorphic way. And so what that means is instead of doing player message, I can target the abstraction, right? So this is an abstract class, and I can say this is player message. And then up here, if I say player message, oops, not that. I'm static. Hold on. Hold your horses. My constructor static for the singleton. Do we want to do that here? We'll see how much trouble we get in for doing this. So if I do player message is equal to new player message, this works. The same way target message equal to new target message, this also works. So in this case, instead of targeting, not targeting, but instead of doing explicit assignment of target message, we can use the abstraction. And this becomes powerful because when we start writing our code, we can say that we just want a method to take in type game message. And then it can take in one of 3 different types of message templates. And that really frees us up to write one method that can respond to a bunch of different things. And that's really the power of polymorphism. Otherwise, you have to have one signature that said accept a player message, another one that said accept a target message, another one said accept a room message. And that is clunky. Oops. Okay. So in theory now, any place in my game where I've got a hive mind, I also have access to a set of message templates that I'll inherit from, or extend, or implement. Implement's probably the best word, right? Implement an abstract class so they abide by that contract. So I come back over, after all that, I come back over into my my base actor, which is in my core. I'm going to my fill result. And now I don't need these, right? I can access the singleton of the hive mind for all these things. Now, because we have a singleton, we don't necessarily need to do the injection, because we don't need to inject the singleton. It's ever present, it's always available. But you can definitely see how I might pass in that dependency. Give me 2 seconds. So I need to do a little more, because now that I'm in the data tier, action result. Let's do something a little different. So I've set my model for action result inside of my data tier. Boom, 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 bop. So inside of my core, inside of my game engine, I'm just going to type a new sentence that says extensions, add a new item, action result. Where am I? Whoa, brain fart. Yes, extensions. I'm going to make this a public static. And then I'm going to say, so if you don't know what extension methods are, I'm going to show you. So the problem we're trying to solve right now is we're inside of our data tier, and I want to get access to my hive mind, but I can't put my core reference in my data tier. It seems like I've hit a roadblock. But because I'm consuming inside of my core, I can do an extension method, which is public static action results from data, and say fill result. I can say this action result, action result. So super simple extension method. And then I also want to take in the int amount. So I tried not to introduce things too quickly, but now this really is just a model. It's just a model to my data tier. And then inside of my extension, that's when I do this. Oops. And then from here, this is my singleton. And then I've got room message. Oop, and I also want the action context. So I've built a extension method And this is how I'm going to be able to extend my models outside of data, right? So I'm going to start leaning up. I'm going to start leaning up all the stuff in data to where it's just models, and it's a refactoring effort, but it's part of the evolution of the code. Okay. And then return action result. So then, so I remove that from data. So what I'm being told now is, hey, if you want to use this extension method, you've got to give me a reference to game engine extension's action result extension. And I do. So now all of that works the way that it did before. Man. All right, so that's all the time that we have for tonight. And once again, I've sucked you into a refactoring night. But I think it was nice because it let us go through and see all the other patterns and see how things have to get jostled around to make other things work. It's kind of the under the hood ugliness of it all. So what I'll be doing after hours is checking out some of the GitHub issues and comments, and then also working to further refactor this stuff down so that it's cleaner. You're not going to miss anything, but you can follow the commits on GitHub to see what changes. But it's more of what we just did. It's the kind of the appreciation that once you introduce a new pattern that fixes one thing, it can really shine a light on other code smells and red flags throughout your project. So always a good thing because it keeps your technical debt down. It allows you to take that time and say, in a project, I'm going to take 2 hours here, or in our case, 30 minutes or so, and we're just going to start getting things in the right direction. And then, depending on how big of a change is required, you can bring in other members of your team, really refactor the code, and keep the entire project in a good trajectory. Trajectory. Yeah, that word. And I apologize for not taking too much of a focus on chat tonight, but you guys were talking up a storm. You didn't even need me in there. Or want me. Single tear. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and commit this. And if there's a bug, I will grab it after hours. But we'll go ahead and just showcase that now. Yeah, so we've got a little bit of it hits a wall someplace. We'll fix that afterwards. But that was a big refactor, and I hope seeing how this one template method has really not only given us a tool to refactor a lot of our code, it's also shown us that we have a lot to improve that we wouldn't have seen otherwise. We were happy and ignorant and loving the world before we knew just how bad things were. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and start closing down. By all means, check the channel. Get on GitHub. I'll be throwing in some fixes and some streamlining over there. It'd be great to continue the conversation offline. But I got to go walk my dog. So I'm going to catch up on chat for just a second. And then, as always, bid you adieu when I'm done. I need exit music. Da 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 da. I'll just provide my own. Ba da ba da ba do. Chuba doo ba ba ba. Cool, synced up. All right, that's it. It'll be next week, same 2 days, Tuesday and Wednesday at 6:45 Eastern Standard Time, and then I'm going to go on a 2-week break. And in that 2 weeks, there's still going to be a bit of activity on GitHub, probably a little less than usual, but going to regroup and come back and with a minty fresh project, just like we did last time, see where to take the whole thing from there. And hopefully I'll be able to collaborate with all the folks in chat. Smudge, Groons, you're a lurker and you're a smart guy. I'm going to pull you into this as well if I can. And then we're going to see what the next step is. During the first semester, we were able to build a very, very basic text-based client. And then I'm hoping at the end of next week, we'll have a multiplayer, multi-tiered little engine that we can play around with. And then next semester, who knows? Maybe we'll put a server up on Azure and we'll connect to it, let people play around. We'll kind of score into rankings. The sky's the limit. All right. As always, thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you guys next week for the final week before the 2-week break.